beautiful ladies and handsome men. I am not sure what's true or false in this story. I take gossip, tea, rumor, and scandal from yesteryear, from online, from word of mouth, from books, and I ball it up and I tell you guys a story. Now, let's get to it. Now, y'all know that Ashley is finna get y'all right. And honey, I don't know if y'all hear the birds chirping in the background, but they got a reason, because my native came in and my skin is silky smooth. I got the powdering cotton, the citrus and herbal musk, and the sandalwood and shea butter. And let's not forget about the deodorant, honey and white oak. And all of these products not only clean me up, baby, they smell so good. Watch how it gets lathered up all over my skin. Look at the froth, the bubbles, and it doesn't leave any residue. It's got naturally derived ingredients, phthalate and dye-free, and it's even vegan and cruelty-free. In fact, it's made with plant-based cleansers and even has citric acid for pH balance. Now, whether you like a spicy smell, a woodsy smell, or clean and crisp, there is a scent for everybody. Lotions, deodorants, body washes, everything. You guys should go to the website right now to see what they have to offer for you. Use my link and code Ashley Says So Too and get 20% off of your first purchase at Native. Now, this offer is available site-wide, but it's only for a limited time. Go ahead and click on the link and save. Hey guys, this is Ashley with Ashley Says So, and I am back with another Old Hollywood Scandals video. And this video is going to start off a little bit different, but do not worry. Y'all gonna see my big face pop up talking to y'all in just a minute. Listen to the story. In December 1895, a lady by the name of Sally Anderson left her two young daughters home alone while she went off to work. One of her daughters was 12-year-old Louise, and the other daughter was 15 or 16-year-old Viola. The girls had been left alone many times before, so this was nothing new. However, on this particular day, there was a young man named John Waters stalking around nearby. 18-year-old John Waters was a brown-skinned, slick-haired, sporting type who was raised in a much higher middle class than Louise and Viola, and the only reason a guy of his caliber and social standing would be anywhere near Louise and Viola would most certainly be a reason full of deviltry and sexually charged wickedness. Indeed, rumor has it that John Waters had already messed around with the elder sister Viola and was now looking to break in, as he called it, the younger sister, Louise. Now, I'm not sure if Viola was jealous of the attention that John Waters was now paying her younger sister, but sure enough, it was Viola's doing that brought John Waters to their house that day. About 3 days earlier, while Viola and John Waters were standing on the street conversing, he told her in no uncertain terms that he was happy to see her, but it was really her little sister Louise that he was interested in. He even went as far as to ask Viola if Louise was still a virgin.
She's still a virgin for all I know. Since you're so interested in her, how about you come back in a few days while my mom at work? Then you can find out for yourself.
And today is that day. So John Waters, who's been stalking around the house, finally sees Mama Sally leave, and he knows Viola and Louise are alone. He goes up on the porch, he knocks on the door, which Viola opens and points him to the back room where Louise is cleaning.
You been broke in yet, gal?
Huh? What you say, Mr. John Waters?
I said you been broke in yet.
She doesn't quite know what to make of his vulgarity and tries to leave the room. John Waters is determined, though, so as she makes a mad dash, he grabs her by her arm and pulls out a knife and puts it to her throat. Louise can barely make a sound as he pushes her down on the floor, assaults her, and then quickly runs away. But when her mother Sally comes home, neither Louise nor Viola mention what has happened for fear of getting into trouble. Secret wasn't safe long, though, because after a few months, Louise's belly started to grow, and Mama Sally couldn't believe her eyes. Had this been her daughter Viola, or another daughter that she had named Ching, she might have accepted it, because they were wayward girls, always loose, always trying to know what's going on in the world. But her daughter Louise was a saint, always pious, always godly. How could she be pregnant?
There was just no way.
Louise!
Yes, Mama?
You pregnant, girl?
Yes, Mama. But it ain't my fault, Mama. Somebody raped me, Mama. John Waters. The slap sent Louise flying back on her behind. As the beating commenced, Louise must have thought she would be beat to death. But a voice that must have seemed to come from an angel yelled out, "Ma, stop!" It was Viola. Viola explained to Sally that she was the one that let John Waters in the house and that Louise was actually in the back room cleaning. What she told Sally was enough. And although it didn't stop Sally's anger, at least now Sally was angry at the right person, John Waters. So she took off, stumping towards John Waters' neighborhood. When his house came into view, she spotted John's light, bright, often mistaken for white, mother sitting on the porch. "Your boy raped my girl. Your boy is the devil." "My boy is a saint," John's mother yelled back. She didn't even know what Sally Anderson was going on about, but she wasn't going to take any disrespect towards her son. But her taking up for him caused Sally Anderson to get even more upset. And so she went on to explain to John's mother just how John had taken advantage of her daughter Louise. And as Sally described detail after detail, John's mother got so riled up that she just couldn't stand it anymore. She opened up her front door and she called for her son. "John Waters, you get down here right now." She told him everything that Sally Anderson had said. She even told him about the baby that Louise was expecting. But the only thing John was worried about denying was the sexual assault. He told his mother and Sally Anderson that he didn't assault anybody. Everything was consensual. He said, doggone, that girl was easy peasy, and he didn't even have to say but a few words before she dropped down her pants. Sally Anderson just couldn't stand it anymore. And as she turned and walked away, she became filled with a deep hatred for John Waters and the whole Waters family. She wouldn't ask that Waters family for nothing. Neither would her daughter Louise. She would be Louise's baby's grandma as well as the daddy. But while Sally taking a stand was honorable, what she didn't know is not only would she have to be the grandmother and the father, she would also have to be the mother too. Because when little baby Ethel was born on October the 31st, 1896, her mother Louise refused to mother her. Every time Louise looked at her, she was reminded of the rape that created her, and so she pushed baby Ethel away. And anytime anybody in the family would pick the baby up to try to show her some love, Louise would shout at them to put her down. She's okay, she's too big to be healed. Oftentimes leaving the child cold and lonely. And these were the hellish circumstances Ethel Waters was born into.
Her Ethel Waters. Because, baby, why come the folks on the old Hollywood street say that Ethel Waters was lying through her teeth? Child, the folks say that Ethel Waters came out with an autobiography and lied about her whole background because she was trying to sell more copies of her book. Go ahead and read what her alleged niece said on the internet. Now, allegedly, this comment was left by musical artist Crystal Waters, who allegedly is Ethel Waters' great-great-niece. And from this right here, Ethel Waters' mama wasn't no doggone teenager, and Ethel Waters' mama was not sexually assaulted. And for those of y'all sitting out there asking, Ashley, if you knew it was all a lie, why you do that dramatic reading, that dramatic intro? Baby, I don't even know why y'all playing. Y'all already knew I was messy when you came here, and you already knew it's a scandalous thing, child. Now, if we're gonna go with the way Ethel told her story, which is really all we have, Ethel basically said her mother didn't like her, didn't want anything to do with her. She also said that when she was around 2 or 3 years old, maybe even younger than that, her mother left her, ran off and married a man and started a whole nother family. And when Ethel was left behind, she was left with her grandmother Sally as well as her aunts. Even though her grandmother Sally tried to be nice to her and basically became a real mother to her, her aunts would curse her out, sometimes push her around, but it was other stuff they did too, because the family was dirt poor and they lived in a little tiny house. So of course, Ethel would sometimes have to sleep with her aunts, and her aunts were rumored to be fast women, and they didn't care if Ethel was in their bed. If they wanted a man, especially a man with some doggone money, they were bringing that man home and sneaking him into the house. And baby wouldn't even check to see if the little girl was asleep. And all of this, of course, caused Ethel to grow up very fast. Gossip claims that at the age of 7, she was already running the streets with street gangs, fighting, stealing, also being a lookout when older teens wanted to grab a girl or grab a boy and go behind a bush and do their thing. And this may seem dangerous for a young girl to be around this group of thugs or these fast teenage boys and girls. Like, dangerous, somebody could do something to her. But Ethel had no fear, baby. Baby, they say little Ethel Waters was laying folks out, knocking everybody's fronts out. And y'all sitting back there like, come on, 7 years old. She couldn't have been that tough, I'm telling you. Because she was a big girl. She was always big for her age. So she might have been 7, but she looked like she was about 10 or 11. But back to the main story, by the age of 12, she was back living with her biological mother, Louise. And it was while she was living here where she caught a man's eye. This guy's name was Merritt Pernsley, but everybody called him Buddy. Well, Buddy was 22 years old, but for some reason, this 22-year-old felt like this 12-year-old girl was destined to be his wife. And after a while, he started asking her to marry him, to which Ethel told him no. She didn't want to marry him because he was much older, first of all. And second of all, even though he was nice to her, she could see that he was controlling. Well, Buddy was about to show her just how controlling he actually was. Buddy found out where she lived and went and asked her mother, could he marry Ethel? And Louise proceeded to give Buddy consent to marry Ethel. So Ethel and Buddy are married, and she finds out for sure that she is right. Buddy is very controlling. He better not catch her talking to any of her friends. She can't go dancing, go skating, and then when she get home, she can't even make conversation with the neighbors. Ethel was miserable, but she wouldn't leave because she was always taught that marriage was forever. That is until while Buddy was all up in her face every day, asking her if she was cheating, what man she was talking to. Baby, Ethel found out that he was actually cheating, leaving every day to go see his side chick. She confronted Buddy, he slapped the taste out of her mouth, and then Ethel ran away and never came back. After leaving Buddy, Ethel took a job running numbers, and she also took a job as a hotel maid. And I think it was right around this time while Ethel was doing this that she also started to perform her little dance moves in local clubs. In fact, she was starting to be known locally for her shimmy. Baby, they said Ethel Waters could shimmy them doggone things better than anybody. And the folks say that it was one day while Ethel was on stage shimmying that the club door slung open, and baby, a man walked in there that made Ethel's eyes pop out of the socket. He had a barrel chest about as big as a mountain, had the arms stacked to match. What? Child. Folks say he was something else, honey. Wasn't no pretty boy at all. He was brawny heaven. She found out very quickly that his name was Rocky, and as much as she tried to be in Rocky's face, smiling, bending all over his table, the man would not bite. Finally, one night she got him alone in the back room, and they started talking, and she found out that Rocky was definitely interested in her. It just wasn't his thing to like slobber over anybody. He was not a hooter or a hollerer. As a matter of fact, Rocky turned out to be more of a poems and a sonnet type of guy. When he and Ethel went out on their first date, he quoted readings, telling Ethel that her hair was black as raven, her skin was a coconut brown. And so for Ethel, flattered ain't the word, baby. She was like a pancake ready to be better. And so she and Rocky started a real relationship, and Ethel fell head over heels. And that's when the whispers started. Girl, you don't want to fool with Rocky. He ain't no good. Hey, look, Ethel, come here. Look, man, I ain't trying to start no mess, but Rocky, man, he ain't no good. He on this stuff, man. Told her Rocky was a cheater. Told her Rocky was on drugs. It did not matter. And very quickly, she and Rocky moved in with each other. And baby, when he laid that cock-a-doodle-doo, Ethel Waters said herself when he laid it, baby, she was stuck like Chuck. Even when she found out that all of those whispers, baby, that stuff was true. Rocky wasn't no good, and Rocky was on drugs. He was taking heroin, cocaine, and morphine. And what Ethel found out is when he was actually high on these drugs, this is when he was the sweet Rocky. But when he was off drugs, child, that boy was busting Ethel all upside her head. But remember, I told y'all Ethel Waters was a fighter herself. So they would just be fighting like cats and dogs. One of them was always sporting a black eye. Somebody was always sporting a busted lip. And then there's this one story that truly stands out. Gossip claims one night out of nowhere, Rocky slapped Ethel, pulled a knife out on her, and was holding it to her side. Ethel started screaming as loud as she could, and so eventually the cops ended up outside. The cops started yelling for them to come on out the house, which Rocky and Ethel do. But the whole time they're walking, Rocky is holding the knife to her side. So they get outside and the police start inching closer and closer to Ethel and Rocky. When they get to Rocky, they basically grab his arm down and get the knife. He doesn't resist. And as soon as the knife is down, Ethel hauls off and slaps Rocky across the face and then takes off running down the railroad. You know, he can't run after her, so he's just yelling at her and she's running away laughing. Rocky actually went to jail for some months after that. And when he came home, guess what? Ethel was right back with him. And there's this other story that stands out. Well, rumor has it that one day Rocky disappears from the house. He is gone for about 3 days. When he comes home, his face is all beat up. His jaw is wired shut because his jaw has been broken. And when Ethel is asking him what happened, he explains to her that he went to go buy drugs and then the drug men jumped on him. Well, Ethel is like, oh my gosh, you poor darling. You know, let's get you a bath. Let me undress you and wash you. Pulls off his shirt. Hickeys are everywhere, baby. I'm talking about he's been with some woman or multiple women and they have gone to town. Ethel, don't even say nothing, dips back and decks him in his broken jaw. Baby said his jaw just fell open, honey. Ethel Waters has bust the whole wire that was holding the jaw together and the man walking around like this now. And what did Ethel do? Pointed at him and laughed and ran away to a friend's house. Now, as much as Ethel loved Rocky and their super toxic relationship, he started getting really, really bad on drugs. I mean, it got to the point where he wasn't even shooting himself up anymore. He would have Ethel shoot him up. And then on his bad days, he could barely get out of bed. And they were young, especially Ethel. She was only around 15 or 16 at this time. So this was starting to be too much on her. And then the main thing that happened is that Rocky's looks started disappearing with the drugs. All of that handsomeness, that big buffness, it started to go away. And unfortunately for Rocky, that was the whole reason that Ethel was still there. So shoot, Ethel started looking at Rocky and he started getting a little ugly to her. And so she did. And this was her second failed relationship at such a young age. So after this relationship, this is when Ethel decided to truly focus on her career. And this was a great thing because her career was about to pick up. Not only was Ethel now dancing in the clubs, she also started singing. And Ethel's singing was a huge hit. Now, Ma Rainey and Bessie Smith were already famous, so the people had heard blues before. But Bessie and Ma, especially Ma Rainey, sang like, hey, listen to me, daddy. You don't shimmy with me no more. You don't shimmy with me, daddy, 'cause you're shimmying with the hoe next door. While Ethel's was more like, well, my papa daddy, he pays me no mind because the girl next door sure can shake her behind. She had the perfect dialect. Her singing was much more crisp, much more clear, and there was definitely some folks accusing her of trying to be white, but majority of the people were just taken in by this singing. It was brand new for them. And so with Ethel knowing how to shimmy like she did and also kicking up those long legs and now singing the way she was, she started to be known not just locally, but from all the towns all around. People started to come and see her. And so soon Ethel's new name is Sweet Mama String Bean, and she is now traveling the vaudeville circuit. Every town Ethel stopped in, she rang bells. And although Ethel was doing numbers, some people kind of held their breath because soon she was going to be on the circuit touring with Ma Rainey and Bessie Smith. And so people were kind of wondering how that was going to work out. But luckily, Ethel had sense. So when they actually did have to do a show on the same bill, Ethel kind of bowed down to these women. You know, she kind of let them know, you know, you are the empress. You are the queen. Regardless of her bowing down, though, everybody knew that there was this new girl in town, Mama String Bean. And honey, Mama String Bean was also starting to be known for being Mrs. Steal Your Girl. Baby Ethel was throwing legs back and coming up face greasy. Cha, Ethel had the tongue of a snake. And it was around this time that she actually had a steady girlfriend, and this girl's name was Ethel Williams. But although Ethel Williams and Ethel Waters were a couple and they were together, they also both still messed with men. And there was this one guy, he came to all of her shows. He was her biggest fan, like he loved Ethel Waters. One day he shows up, he gets on one knee, honey, he has a ring and everything, and he asks Ethel Waters to marry him. And so Ethel is like, oh, brother, not this again. You know, I got to think of something bad to get him away from me. And so she says, boy, you don't want none of this. Ooh, this stuff dirty, nasty, stinking. You don't want none of this. The guy stays on one knee, still got his hand up. Will you marry me? Ethel is like, look, listen, I didn't want to say all this because this is putting my business out there. But honey, I got syphilis. Child say the man stood up and said, Ethel, you being so open brings a tear to my eye. Now I really want to marry you. And to this, Ethel had no response. So she just turned around and took off running. And baby, you know the folks say that Jack Johnson was one of the men lined up for a taste. Now gossip claims that Jack Johnson and Ethel were on tour together, and Jack was basically there as kind of a novelty. You know what I'm saying? He was the famous boxer. Well, of course, Jack, extra chocolate, extra handsome, and extra wealthy. Y'all already know how I feel about him, honey. I told y'all in the Lena Horne video. So yeah. But anyways, Jack would make all of the women swoon all over him. And so Ethel is kind of stepping back and looking at this behavior like, why is they acting like that? He don't even like they black darky tails and they sitting up there falling out and stuff like that. They know he ain't gonna go for them because Jack Johnson was known to date and marry white women. Well, to move along with the story, during the tour, Jack would try to be wherever Ethel was. If he saw her walking down a hallway, he would hurry up and try to come out his door and walk past her. If he saw her eating, he would make sure he walked into the mess room too. But no matter what, Ethel would just say, you know, how you doing? Smile, nod, and walk off. She never treated him like all the other women treated him. And Jack Johnson could not understand this. And not only that, it bothered him. Well, pretty soon he gave his flunky a note and told the flunky to take the note to Ethel. And when she read it, it basically was like, you know, come by my room tonight, Jack Johnson. And so Ethel told the flunky, here, you can take this back. I'm not going to his room. My room is right down the hallway. If he wants to see me, he can come here. The very next night, he was knocking on her door. So she lets him in the room, and gossip claims that night they talk about everything. And so when they are both good and comfortable with each other, you know, they're laughing, having a good time, Ethel just blurts out, you know, why do you only date and marry white women? And Jack told her something to the effect of, white women are just easier. They listen to me, they obey. When I come home, walk through the door, they're happy to see me. And the whole time he's explaining this, Ethel is just sitting back listening. She never once frowns her face. She never once gets rude, any of that. She's just listening, totally interested. And I guess since Ethel didn't respond with attitude, or since she wasn't trying to argue with him or something, baby, Jack Johnson just about fell in love. The folks say that by the time he was leaving the room, honey, he stood in the doorway and turned around and told her, you know, Ethel, I could fall in love with a little girl like you. Ethel said, now, Jack, now we ain't finna go there. Go on. But child, the old Hollywood streets say they did go there, because gossip claims that not only did Jack Johnson come to her room that night, he started coming to her room almost every night, several nights after that. Now, some folks say they just talked, but some folks felt like it was a lot of visiting going down for nothing to be going down. Ethel loved her boxers, honey, because outside of Jack Johnson, there's also rumors that she probably didn't mess with, but definitely had some sort of relationship with Joe Louis. The folks say that she slept with boxer Al Brown and also slept with boxer Buffalo Jean. So Ethel is on this vaudeville tour and she is living life. She's got her men and her women. She's making good money. She gets a lot of adoration from the crowd. And suddenly, everything came to a halt. It is the early 1920s and Ethel Waters is doing a show in Birmingham, Alabama. And so she and 5 more people are piled up in a car and they are driving through Birmingham. And so the residences, even a lot of the white residents, still had horse and buggy. And at this moment, Ethel them were driving through a part in Birmingham where mostly whites were. And so they drive in their car looking out the window, and of course all of these white faces are frowned up at them, folks cursing who they think they is. Ethel and her friends are just looking at them. But I guess the driver with his crazy tail was also looking or something, because suddenly there was a buggy right in front of him, and when he looked forward, he had to swerve to miss the buggy. Child, the whole car flipped over. And although 4 people got out, Ethel as well as another girl were pinned up under the car. The car was very heavy and crushing Ethel and the other girl, so everybody else that was in the car tried to push the car off of Ethel and the girl, but every time they pushed the car, boiling hot water from the radiator would spill and fall on Ethel, all on her chest, her breast, all on her stomach, like she is getting burnt up. The car is really heavy though, so it is taking forever. So the 4 people that are pushing, they have no choice but to try to ask some of the white residents around them to please help us. Child, them white folks cuss them black folks out. Help ya? I'm not helping you, driving like a bat out of hell, and then those nigger bitches should die anyway. I hope they die. And Ethel was laid trapped under this car, and she could not believe her ears. She was from Pennsylvania. She hadn't experienced any type of racism like what they had in Alabama. Thankfully, the 4 friends finally were able to push the car off of her. She has to be transported over an hour away to Anniston, Alabama, just to get to an hospital that has a black wing or Negro wing. When she gets to the hospital, they have to take her to the white wing first because the doctor with the expertise won't go to the Negro wing, and he sees that she's burned everywhere, and he also tells her that she has a cut going all the way from her hip down to her knee. And after telling her that, he also tells her, well, yep, that's what's wrong. So get on up and walk on down to the Negro wing. And that is what Ethel has to do. And when she gets there, she is relieved, honey. She is finally around her own people. She'll get the care that she deserves. Wrong. Child, Ethel laid up in that hospital bed for about a week before anybody even came to check on her and change her bandages. There was a nice little nurse that came in to feed her sometimes. But other than that, that's it. She was just kind of laid there, sitting there. When she finally was like, forget this, I'm leaving here, she found out that somebody definitely had been in her room. Because, baby, she opened her luggage and all her money was gone. Ethel left Alabama madder than an SOB, honey. And she never, ever forgot the treatment that she had when she was down here. Now, by 1925, Ethel's career was going even further because she had started recording records. And as she became known to a wider group of people and she left vaudeville to start performing in upscale clubs and upscale theaters, Ethel felt like she needed to present a more stable, or I guess classy, acceptable look. She felt like she needed to be a married woman. So she ended up marrying her manager, a man by the name of Earl Dancer. And Earl Dancer really became like Berry Gordy was for Diana Ross. I mean, he started getting these beautiful pictures made for Ethel. He worked hard to get her top booking. He was almost great, except sometimes he would steal money from her, and also he would cheat on her. Gossip claims that one time Ethel caught him in a hotel room with a dancer named Billie Kane, and Ethel choke slammed Earl and then slapped Billie Kane about 10 times. And this was the beginning of Ethel Waters showing her messy behind color. Because, baby, the folks say that Josephine Baker almost got slapped. Now, rumor has it that Josephine Baker was not big-time Josephine Baker from over in Paris. No, she was still just the American dancer. Well, anyways, her and her dance troupe were performing at a club called the Paradise Club, and Ethel Waters was also on the bill. Well, for whatever reason, Ethel was in a mood. So she got her money up front, and then she performed the first night, and then on the second night, she told the club owner that her throat was messed up, she couldn't perform, she was sitting it out. And Josephine Baker hears about it, and she knows all of Ethel Waters' songs. So she tells the club owner, I can sing her songs, just give me a chance. And so he's like, you know what, cool. Go on the stage, little girl, and see what you can do. Well, Josephine Baker gets on the stage, and she kills it. So the very next night, the club owner tells Josephine, hey, get up, get ready, because I think Ethel's voice is still messed up. So Josephine is walking down the hallway to the stage. Baby, next thing you know, she gets bumped out of the way, and it's Ethel walking to the stage. And Josephine, in her feelings and being disrespectful and rude, says this, I guess you feeling better. Too bad for the crowd tonight. Baby said Ethel turned around and was like, you ugly darky, you bald head N-word, how dare you? Baby walking up on Josephine Baker, Child, Josephine Baker got ghosts. But then you have those stories of Ethel being a menace just to be a menace. Now, the folks say that sometime in the 1930s, and by this time, Ethel is a legit star. In fact, some people feel like she is the most famous black woman in America. So anyways, Ethel rents some furniture from this white woman. But then, like 6 months later, Ethel just stops paying on the furniture. So the white lady tries to call Ethel, no answer. She tries to write Ethel, no answer. So finally, one day, she shows up at Ethel's door. Ethel opens the door and the woman is like, "Hello, Ethel. I'm here to get the money that you..." Child, Ethel had slapped that woman and told her to pipe down, said her voice was too loud. Not only did the woman's voice get small, the woman got small too because she ran away. And Ethel did get charges levied against her, but she told the cops that she was just having such a bad time, and she was crying and she was just so sorry. So I think they ended up letting her off by paying a fine. And if you think that was bad, gossip claims that was nothing when it came to the way Ethel Waters used to act towards other people in show business. And I'm gonna do a little bit of cursing from here on out to make this stuff real for you. It was also in the 1930s when she was in a play called Black Mamba. Anytime anybody in the cast messed up and flubbed a line, Ethel would light into them. "Well, shit. It's been 2 weeks. You think there's enough time to learn your line? I tell you, I ain't gonna spend all day while you motherfuckers can't get it right." And nobody dared say anything to her because for one, she was the biggest star in the show. And for two, they were scared of Ethel Waters. She had already built up a reputation of being difficult. I mean, there are a couple of rumors out here on the streets about Ethel beating up male promoters and club owners when she was doing the vaudeville circuit. So nobody dared say anything. But then if Ethel messed up a line and somebody would politely say, Ethel, I think you said that word, but you're supposed to say that word. Now, just who the hell you talking to? Hell, I'm a performer and these is my lines. You would think I would be saying my own lines, right? And then if somebody else in the cast stepped up and was like, no, Ethel, he or she is right. You really did say this thing wrong. Here come the tears and waterworks. Oh, I guess I just can't do nothing right. Lord, folks just want to nitpick with everything I do, just want to pick me apart. So Ethel was that type of woman. And then don't let any movie or play or anything else have a woman that was younger or skinnier than Ethel. Don't let that woman have a dance or a song in the play or movie. Gossip claims in this particular play, Black Mamba, that Alberta Hunter was in it. Ethel talked to Alberta like a dog. Said at one point, Ethel got up in her face and was like, "Yeah, I said it. You can't do shit right. What you gonna do about it? You gonna swing on me? You gonna hit me?" And most people thought while Ethel was doing this, moving up and pushing Alberta, that Ethel was about to swing on Alberta. But she didn't. And Alberta, thankfully, instead of like fussing back or cursing back, she was just like, Ethel, it's fine. And she would just turn around and walk off. What about the way she treated Billie Holiday? There was some stage play that Ethel Waters was about to star in Harlem. And Billie Holiday's mother, who was a huge Ethel Waters fan, heard about it and told Billie, "Hey, I'm going to send you by train to Harlem so you can audition for this play." And her mother only had like $2 to give Billie, so that was enough to kind of get Billie there and so she can buy one meal. But her mother wasn't worried because her mother made the same mistake that many people make. She saw Ethel Waters' performances and she thought Ethel Waters was the sweet lady that she played on her show. And so her thinking Ethel Waters was like this, she told her daughter Billie, "You won't need any fareback or anything like that. I promise you, once you audition, Ethel is gonna love you. You really seem like a younger her. Plus, she real sweet. If you tell her what's wrong, she won't let you go hungry." Honey, Billie Holiday got to that doggone theater to audition, couldn't get 3 words out before Ethel Waters stood up in her seat. Oh no, she don't come in here singing. Ain't nobody singing in this play but me. Get her tail out of here. And so Billie is startled as somebody comes and hurry up and scooches her off the stage. And whoever it was must have heard about her only having $2 to get there and already spending her money. And so when they're pushing her out of the door, they're like, "Here, take this $2. Billie was so upset and disgusted by what Ethel Waters had done, she took the $2 and threw it back in the person's face and was like, "F you and F Ethel Waters." And
And Eartha Kitt scooped up Skippy Head, got sat down too. Eartha Kitt was dancing with the Katherine Dunham troupe, meaning Eartha was just now starting out. And Katherine Dunham's troupe was hired to dance in a play that Ethel was starring in. Well, Eartha and the rest of the dancers are practicing on stage and they have their costumes on. And these are little flimsy costumes, you know, their stomach is out, their legs are out, and they spinning around, kicking, jigging, and suddenly they hear a voice off stage. Oh, hell no! Get those naked bitches off my stage right now. Ain't no funky naked tramps gonna be dancing on the stage that I'ma sing on. Eartha and the dancers take off looking like little Tinkerbells running away. So the producer or the director went and explained to Ethel that, hey, you know, these are what the dancers are gonna wear and we need these dancers for the production. Also, Katherine Dunham came into the scene. She was trying to explain to Ethel as well as defend her girls, her dance troupe. Baby, the next thing you know, the folks done found Katherine Dunham outside crying next to the trash cans. Ethel Waters had cussed her out and sent her on her way. And now we get to one of the biggest and most famous stories of Ethel Waters' treatment, and that is involving Lena Horne. So by this time, it is the 1940s, and there is a movie that Lena as well as Ethel are starring in, and it's called Cabin in the Sky. And Ethel Waters has not looked like a slim young woman for a long time, but by the 1940s, she really is starting to show age, and she has picked up a lot of weight. And also, just to give you a little more tea on the background, Ethel Waters has heard how the NAACP is lifting up Lena Horne all the while boo-booing on Hattie McDaniel. And if you guys watch the Hattie McDaniel video, you guys can learn all about that. They did Hattie McDaniel wrong. So Ethel had heard about that. So immediately, when Lena Horne's name is even mentioned to be a part of this movie, her face frowns up. And from day one, Ethel is nasty on the set. The first thing she complains about is a song that Lena Horne is going to sing in the movie. Ethel says that Lena is mimicking her. You know, all of her facial expressions, even down to the way she moves her mouth. So the director tells Lena, please, you know, whatever you're doing, don't do whatever with your face because Ethel feels like you're trying to mimic her. And then whenever Lena walks on the set, Ethel is, look at her. You know, doing all this, making all these sounds. And then other cast members are making Ethel even more mad because anytime Lena does anything, oh, great job, Miss Horne. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. You were beautiful out there, Lena. Do it again. We can't get enough of you. And then they push it even more when they write in a scene that has Lena Horne in a bubble bath or in a bathtub, just so they can show a bit more of her skin, her figure, her beauty. Ethel is just stewing. I mean, she is on fire, honey. Ethel ain't even really mumbling anymore. I mean, she is full on over to the side in the corner. Look at that bitch. Ugh, she gets just on my nerve. And then one day, Lena Horne is walking out doing a scene, and she falls and she chips a bone in her ankle. Everybody, especially all the men in the room of every race, baby, comes running up to Lena. Oh, Miss Horne, are you okay? Oh my gosh, you baby doll. Do you need anything, Miss Horne? But while they're doing that, they start hearing cackling from the other side of the room. Ethel Waters is over there laughing, honey. Tickled to death, baby. And then she says something up under her breath like, that's what she gets. She's sitting up there switching a little bit too hard. Maybe if she wasn't trying to swing them hips where everybody could see, she could walk right. And then the next day, Lena is doing a scene, and after they yell cut, she reaches down and she rubs her ankle and she starts saying, you know, ooh, that hurt. And some man came running from out of the background with a pillow for Lena Horne's ankle. And he gets down on his knees and he says, you know, I got a pillow for you. You want me to put a pillow under your ankle, Miss Horne? This right here was the last straw. Get up from there, you crazy? Offering her a goddamn pillow for a goddamn ankle. What she need it for? You would think she would be okay. She ain't the first woman that's been suffered an injury. Oh, but I get it. Just because she light, bright, almost white, you Negroes and half of you whites come running up behind her, licking your lips, sniffing around like some goddamn puppies. She ain't shit. Ain't got a bit more talent than any other woman. Only reason she lifted up is because the Jews run the show. You Hollywood Jews, I love you. You make me sick. Y'all the ones keep up mess like this. You cast women like her and barely pay us regular old darkies anything. You all are an evil group of people. And you're gonna rot. And baby, that is the cleaned up version. It was
a mess. Ethel Waters had shown her true colors, and the colors were ugly. All that hurt, envy, pain, and anger that she had been holding in, it now came through and made her look so very insecure and so very hateful. And then to speak against the people who dominate Hollywood, it was a career breaker. And it definitely put Ethel Waters' film career on ice. In fact, Ethel Waters could not find another job in Hollywood or any film at all for the next 6 years. This whole thing went down in 1943, and Ethel, who was in her late 40s by now and looked even older, had to go back to singing in clubs. She wasn't young, sexy mama string bean anymore. And also, Ethel Waters was stubborn. Now you had singers like Billie Holiday, Dinah Washington, Sarah Vaughan, Ella Fitzgerald. Those singers were up and coming, and a lot of them were thinner than Ethel. They were younger than Ethel, and they were singing newer type music, jazz music, pop music. And Ethel, even though she looked out of place going back to the clubs and trying to sing there, she did have several people try to tell her, you know, Ethel, you probably can make this thing work, but you need to stop singing those old songs. Ain't nobody trying to hear Old Man River, that old man. You know, ain't nobody trying to hear that no more. They trying to hear a la-ti-dee-da, sca-da-dee-dee. You know, they're trying to hear popping, scatting. And Ethel was probably more than capable of doing this, but she hated the younger generation. Like, she abhorred that. And there was no way she was going to stoop down and kind of prove them right. Like, she wasn't going to change her way to fit in with this younger generation. Thankfully, I think during this 6-year time period, she did appear in several plays, which was great because she needed the money. But Ethel started to kind of have problems from all over. And one of the biggest problems was with the Black community as well as the NAACP. Now, very early on in the early 1920s, when she was still very younger, sometimes she would take some of her paycheck and she would donate it to Black causes, NAACP, things like that. But I think when Black protest and Black problems started to kind of interfere with her career, she kind of stopped being so nice and so giving. And that is because the NAACP started treating her the same way that they were treating Hattie McDaniel, the same way that they started treating Stephen Fetchit, because they felt like her roles were too stereotypical. She did an interview probably in the early 1940s, and in this interview, it was a radio interview, and it ain't funny, but it kind of is, but bless her heart, Ethel thought that this radio station was a I'm sorry. This one took me out, I'm sorry. But Ethel thought this radio station was like a whites-only radio station. She thought that only whites were going to be listening to this. Baby, Ethel Waters got on that microphone talking about how she loved white people. They were her bestest, closest friends. She even said that white people were her most loyal fans. Well, no matter how white that station was or their listeners were, there had to be at least one person somewhere listening that night. And honey, the next day, the Black newspapers had an article that ripped Ethel Waters to shreds. Here it is. Y'all can read it. So that was no good, and then her love life was in tatters. I haven't spoke on it much, but Ethel Waters was alleged to be married 3 times. The first time to Earl Dancer, second to a guy named Eddie Matthews, and then third to a guy named Eddie Mallory. And some of these guys loved Ethel for real, some of them did not, but all of them pretty much used her for money. You know, they would have her fund their business ventures, fund their lifestyles, and all of these guys were very handsome men. Well, when Ethel got older, instead of trying to find an older man, she still wanted her men to be young and handsome. And this led to a guy taking advantage of her. This guy's name was Archie Savage, and Archie was actually a gay man. Ethel knew he was a gay man. And so it was a weird relationship. She kind of turned Archie Savage into her boy toy, but gossip claims they never really slept together. Or if they did, it was very, very minimal. But either way it goes, Archie still moved into her house. He got access to all her cars, access to all her high celebrity friends. And Ethel, for her part, she liked to show up with Archie Savage on her arm. Ethel gave him his freedom to come and go. You know, he could leave and go and stay with his lovers. And also when Ethel was working on a movie or out of town, she left him the whole house to do whatever he wanted. But he still grew resentful. I think he wanted to live his gay life alone without having to do anything with this old woman. But he had grown accustomed to the lifestyle, to the wealth. So the story says one day Ethel was out of town shooting. When she gets back home, she expects to find Archie there, but he is not. So Ethel just feels like, okay, well, maybe he's going to spend a couple of nights with one of his friends. Well, more than a couple of days pass, and not only does Archie not come back home, also any check that Ethel writes, it bounces. She calls the bank, checks her bank account is drained. Ethel does not panic because she knows she has a trunk in her house with $10 in cash and a whole bunch of jewelry that's worth a lot of money. But when she opens the trunk, she does start to panic because none of her stuff is there. Ethel calls every friend of Archie that she knows, and she finally tracks him down, and she tells him, hey, I need you to come to the house. You know, you got to help me find my money. My money is gone. Archie comes to the house, and he's looking around, and then Ethel stops, and she says, you know, well, if you can't come up with it, because clearly you can't find it, I'm about to have to call the police and tell them about your friends, because whoever you had in my house while I was gone, they took my money. You ain't got to call nobody because they didn't take your money. I took your money. But I tell you what, I give you the cash and the jewels back. I just need you to sign over your Cadillac to me and give me the deed to your house. Child, Ethel called the police so quick, a month later, Archie Slickhead was sitting in court. He tried to lie and make it seem like he and Ethel were married and the money belonged to him as well as Ethel and all this good stuff. Nobody bought it, and he ended up being sentenced to 10 years. By the mid-1950s, Ethel was not getting much work. She did start doing a religious tour with Billy Graham. She became one of his crusaders. And Ethel was indeed doing this out of the kindness of her heart, like she was a true Christian, but she would get a love offering paid to her as well. But in 1961, Ethel Waters got one of her last serious roles, and it was in a show called Route 66. And Ethel gave a stunning performance. So stunning that she was nominated for an Emmy, and most people feel like she was robbed of that Emmy. Like, she did an excellent job. She really did. It was really a tearjerker. I'll put the link in the description. You guys can go watch that episode. Now, from here on out, she did make other TV appearances, you know, talk shows. One time she sang with Diana Ross. Another time she appeared with Pearl Bailey. And if you guys watched my Pearl Bailey video and you guys remember how nasty Pearl Bailey was to the younger girls, especially Maya Angelou, well, allegedly, Ethel Waters taught Pearl Bailey to be like this. She told Pearl this is how she needed to be because she told Pearl any of the younger upcoming girls were smiling in your face and getting ready to stab you in the back. And so Pearl Bailey took that to heart, and she was tough on anybody up under her. Now, if you're wondering why Ethel Waters chose Pearl Bailey to mentor to instead of like getting in her face and treating her bad, it is because Pearl Bailey did to Ethel Waters the same thing that Ethel Waters did to Bessie Smith and Ma Rainey. Pearl Bailey bowed down to Ethel. But to wrap things up, no matter all of the stories, lies, or whatever it is when it comes to Ethel and her mother Louise, gossip claims that Ethel took care of her mother Louise to her dying day. Even after her mother Louise passed, allegedly Ethel was still sending some money home to other family members until Ethel's dying day, which was said to be September the 1st, 1977, from uterine cancer as well as kidney failure. And Ethel was 80 years old. All right, guys, woo, that was a wild ride, but we are finally done with the scandalous tale of Miss Ethel Waters. If you guys enjoyed it, go ahead and click the like button. If you guys are new here, or even if you're not new here and your little skippy scooped up head have not subscribed yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Stop being messy. That's my job. Anyways, y'all, I love y'all so much. I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye.